Edward and the E4. One day, Edward was talking to an engine from the other railway. She was painted dark blue, had the number 490 on her sides, and the words GER on her tender. Edward thought the engine's design reminded him of another engine. "You know, your design reminds me of another engine," said Edward. "Oh, really?" replied the engine. "Who was this other engine?" "I'll tell you," said Edward. And so he began. "Many years ago, before I arrived, there was another engine of the same class as you. His name was Newman. Newman was a hard worker and did his jobs without fuss. He would always try to cheer the others up when they were getting picked on by the bigger engines like 98462 and 87546, and would stand up to them and scold them severely. Until it was time for Newman to go home. Most of us were sad to see him go, but we hoped one day he would return, which he didn't. But I did see him one day while I was waiting at a station at Vickerstown. He was collecting a passenger train." "Wow," said the engine. "I'm sure he was a very hard worker." "Yes, he was," said Edward. Then one day, while he was still on the railway, he scolded 87546 for bullying other engines. 87546 felt ashamed, but 98462 didn't. He still continued his devious ways, but 87546 redeemed himself after that. "Well, I'm glad," said the engine. So, there was a long silence. "So," said the engine, "Newman was a hard worker, eh?" "Yep," said Edward. "He was. And a good friend, too. I hope he's doing all right." "I'm sure he is." But, as Edward found out a few days later, Newman was sadly scrapped after having an accident. Edward was heartbroken, but deep down he knew Newman would be doing better in heaven. And he was right. Newman was doing better. He was watching over his friend Edward and seeing that Edward was having a good life on Sodor. I think they might reunite someday. Don't you?